This holiday season must have been the season of, boyfriends realizing that their girlfriends are too good to be true, because Zendaya and Tom Holland got engaged. And so did I. We're practically twins. And as someone who has never once put any thought into what their dream wedding might be, I found myself completely lost in the process of planning a wedding. Planning an event is not an easy feat, but I've also discovered a lot about a world that I had no knowledge of and no interest in having knowledge of until about a fortnight ago. And that is the wedding industry, the world of weddings. It really is a beautiful thing because there are so many people that are genuinely passionate about weddings. There are people who care so deeply, like we've spoken to hosts of venues that we've toured around. I've watched videos made by wedding planners and by brides, like brides talking about their big days. And everyone that I've seen has had one thing in common, and that is that they genuinely cared deeply about either their wedding or they care deeply about other people's weddings, which has been a very interesting discovery for me as someone who has never cared about being married. Like, it's so important to some people. And luckily for me, their passion and the excitement is kind of contagious, because it's to the point now where I've kind of found myself getting excited about the idea of a wedding, and I never have before in my life. But there are a few things that just don't really sit right with me as a person when it comes to weddings. And so to be the center of attention on a day where I don't really feel like I'm being true to myself, the thought of that is terrifying me. And the worst part of it, really, when it comes down to it for me, is the idea of spending a heap of money on a day that most people actually just don't care about. Like, from what I've heard, especially if you do it wrong for the crowd that you're inviting, weddings can bore attendees to death. I've only had the pleasure of attending like one that I can remember, and I thought it was great, but it was the only one I'd ever been to. So I suppose you go to a couple and you get a bit burnt out, maybe. Too much love, you know, too much, you're like, oh my god, stop it, I don't care anymore. And while maybe throwing money at your big day, just more and more money, might make it a little bit more enjoyable for people. Say you have the money to hire a really good DJ or get an ice cream truck or a photo booth or whatever, the whole 9 yards, you know, everything that you could possibly get to entertain people. No amount of money will change the fact that you're essentially hosting an event for yourself and just dragging a whole bunch of other people into it. I found out recently that the most expensive wedding ever hosted, that I know of anyway, cost $1 billion, and this was just back in 2016. It was hosted by the father of the groom, who is a Russian oil tycoon, so maybe we should all start getting into the business. And it's crazy. It was crazy. The entire venue was covered like head to toe in lights and flowers. The wedding dress was beautiful and sparkly, and it cost $25,000, and it weighed 12 kg, which for Americans, any Americans out there, that is 28 pounds. I said that with a lot of emphasis, but I don't know what that means. I know what 12 kg, but it was 12 kg. Like, the bride literally couldn't walk without assistance. It was so heavy. And the cake, oh my god, the cake, it was fit for the BFG. It was humongous. It was like 10 times the amount of people that attended probably could all fit inside the cake. Also, Sting, Jennifer Lopez, and Enrique Iglesias all performed. Enrique, sorry, I don't know why I said Enrique. The only question I have is, how did they pick those artists? Because they seem like a lucky dip. Or maybe it was just like whoever said yes to coming first got the spot, because then of course it makes sense that Jennifer Lopez was there, bless her heart. But to be completely honest with you, or listen, you be completely honest with me, does the wedding that I just described to you sound like fun? Like, is that your idea of a dream wedding? Because maybe it does to you, maybe it sounds great to you, maybe that's your thing. But all it sounds to me is expensive, like just for the sake of being extravagant. You can't tell me that these people, well, maybe they're really used to the luxuries in life, maybe this was cool for them, but in my mind, the people who attended would have had just as much fun at a cheaper event, or even more fun, possibly. At least the bride would be able to walk by herself. What a way to spend your big day. You're like, oh, I need to go to the bathroom. Can I get like 5 people to pick up my dress for me? And Jennifer Lopez does sound the exact same live as she does over a Bluetooth speaker, so that could have been a cost easily avoided, just saying. Either way, a study actually found that couples who put on like lavish, expensive weddings are actually more likely to divorce than couples who have cheaper weddings. But this $1 billion couple, I checked. It looks like they're still going strong, okay? So they are proving those stereotypes wrong. Get it, girl. Anyway, all of this to say, I did go a little off topic, but the point is, I found that it's so easy to lose track of what's actually important, even as like peasants, you know, who could never afford a $1 billion wedding.
Are you doing an announcement video?
No, not really, just talking about it.
About what?
About weddings.
And how annoying and frustrating they are?
How'd you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I sent you wedding venues, did you see them?
Today?
Yeah.
No. No, not yet. Do you want me to add anything to it?
Do you want to add anything to it?
What do you want me to add to it?
I don't know, tell me how you're feeling.
What do you want me to say?
Anything you want.
Anything you want.
Thank you so much.
This is what my partner had to say when I asked him if I could do all that. anything you want. Okay, love you.
Alright, I'll have our wedding planned by the time you get back.
I said I love you.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye. What an impromptu appearance by the man himself. The one that's caused me all this stress. It was so not scripted, oh my god. The stress of it all. Oh, show business. No business like show business. That might be the happiest and less stressed we've ever been while discussing this, by the way. Anyway, as I was saying, I've been perusing blogs recently of local-ish photographers to get an idea of like venues, vibes, decorations, and the days that seem the most fun, through photographs anyway, I mean you can't really judge from just a photo, but they always seem to be, not the expensive ones, but rather the ones where the bride and groom maybe elope somewhere meaningful to them and then shoot out to a restaurant with close friends and family. The ones where they get married in a pretty garden and they go inside the community hall that they've decorated and they do like speeches and dances and have dinner. I think it's just, they're the ones that you can tell the bride and groom have put together a day that suits them. And so regardless of like how many people showed up, how many people were in the bridal party, whether they got married for free at a beach or a park somewhere, or whether they got married at an entire venue that they rented out for like 3 days. My conclusion from that was, as hard as it is to like remind myself of this, a good wedding doesn't really depend on anything other than the people being there being generally happy. Like one of the posts I saw was of a couple who got married literally at like a public park, really pretty place, but public, so free, right? And they were beaming from ear to ear, and so were their guests because they were just happy to be there. And I think part of that probably does come from like the lowered stress of it all. It's not so much planning and so much setup and so much logistics and organization. It's just, how do we make this a good day? And those are the kind of posts that I see that actually sort of get me excited to have a wedding. Because I mean, you're meant to be celebrating the start of your lives as a married couple, but instead of putting that first, I don't know if this is true for everyone, but it has been for me, you find yourself getting sucked into the idea that you need this like big showy display. You need to put that on for the people that don't care half as much as you do, okay? But you need it, all right? Kind of like in the same way that Valentine's Day is like a construct, right? It's like, oh, did you buy something for your girlfriend this Valentine's Day? Maybe this nice pretty diamond bracelet? Oh my god, you didn't? Oh, breakup season's coming. In the same way that there's pressure to buy stuff around holidays like that, there's pressure to put on this really expensive, extravagant wedding. And why? It just ends up in you pumping tens of thousands of dollars into hosting a day that will be forgettable for most people there. Like, when I really think about it logically, I know that a more intimate gathering is going to be more memorable. And a lot of that is where the stress comes from, right? Like, my partner and I have been losing our minds trying to find a venue. Oh my god, I could run headfirst into that wall. And it's difficult because, like, maybe we don't really know what we want. We can't fully agree on everything. But as soon as we see a venue, somehow we know that's not the one. Like, oh no, it looks too cheap, or oh, it's too expensive, or it's not big enough, or we can't have it for this time, or like it's, oh my god, everything. And there's so many things, like we're trying to find one that's not in town but far enough away that people can still travel there easily. One that's private but not so secluded that there's like accommodation for 12 people nearby and the next nearest township is like an hour out. One that doesn't cost, $10,000 to get married on some grass and then $15,000 to have a like mediocre 3-course meal inside the venue where everyone gets fed like squid ink and caviar just because it sounds nice, not because it tastes nice. I don't know, honestly, I think the thing is the perfect venue just doesn't exist. The perfect wedding doesn't exist. Nothing is ever going to check all of your boxes and all of your guests' boxes. Probably nothing within your budget anyway, because babe, if you're anything like us. So anyway, I stopped myself yesterday. I stopped and I thought to myself, why am I doing this? What am I doing this for? Like, how are we meant to host this big day that we have to spend ages planning and pump our money into if we don't care about it? And so I wrote down just the top 3 words that came into my mind when I thought about how my ideal wedding would be. Like what my ideal wedding day would consist of. And it was these 3 words. It was fun, memories, and people. A close contender for the list was food, but it just didn't quite get there. And that made me stop again and think, you can make fun memories with people anywhere. And you can eat food almost anywhere. I mean, the options are endless. Obviously though, I think the thing is my partner and I, or I guess I should get used to saying my fiancé and I. We've been calling each other Beyoncés because it feels so like posh and funny to say, oh yes, my fiancé. But anyway, we obviously have every intention of getting married this one time in our lives. So the stakes feel very high. But again, when you really think about it, there is almost no way that we're going to look back at our wedding photos unless we don't actually do what we want to do, unless we don't follow our gut. Even if we did the bare minimum, or maybe things weren't exactly as lush as we wanted or whatever, we're probably not going to look back at those photos and think, oh yeah, that day sucked. Unless, say, like we're real stressed or we genuinely didn't cultivate the day to be what we wanted at all. At the very bare bones of it, the day that we get married, surrounded by friends and family that we want to be around will always be important to us just because of those two facts. We got married and there were people there that we cared about. So then the question becomes, how do we make this day the most fun and the most memorable it can be for us? Closely followed by the question, how do we make this day the most fun and the most maybe slightly memorable that we can for the people who take time out of their busy lives to come and support us and celebrate with us? But then those questions are still closely followed by, how can we achieve that without breaking the bank? Because if you ask people for like wedding budgeting tips, a lot of them would say, cut down on your guest numbers. Which is great advice on the surface because it is very expensive to have guests. But I'd also argue that having guests that you want around is like the whole point. I think it definitely depends on what's important to you, of course, like your priorities. It's just that I don't like the idea of cutting down the guest list if I actually want those people around or my partner actually wants those people around, because otherwise we can't afford maybe the venue that we wanted or the exact food that we wanted. Like surely there's a better way to do it. I think even having like a pizza party-esque gathering with everyone that you want around would be miles more enjoyable than having a fancy sit-down meal with like the 15 people that you could afford to come with you. With like no kids or anything, no real atmosphere. I don't know. I just think there's other ways to cut down. Like for example, I spent $100 on my dress from a chick on Facebook Marketplace who was very nice, loveliest lady. And I did that because I don't care about having an expensive dress. So when I saw that one in sort of the style that I wanted, I was like, oh, great. And it fits perfectly. By the way, I can't show you in case my partner watches it, but it was like magical putting it on because I thought for sure it has like lace sleeves. I was like, there's no way, they're not stretchy, they're not gonna fit. Nah, perfect fit. I was shocked. And I am so glad that I got a nice dress that I like fine without breaking the bank, because to me that's not the most important part. I'd rather put the money elsewhere. Same with like similarly, for all I care, my bridesmaids can wear dresses from like Shein. You know, you don't need to spend $1 million on stuff like that in my mind. And we definitely need to cut down in certain places because my partner and I are aiming for a budget of under 15 grand if we're lucky. Just because we both agree, like paying an arm and a leg for, I know it's a very important day of your lives that you're gonna remember forever and you want to make it good, but for one day of your life, it's just a bit fucking crazy. Like in this economy, it really is like, what is it, mortgage or marriage? And we want both, okay? But oh my god, it's hard. And I mean, it really is a hunt. Like the first venue that both of us quite liked was going to cost us over 15 grand just to hire out the venue and the catering that we had to get going with that venue. And then the cheaper venues have come with some other issues, where there was this venue we really liked. It was council property, lakeside, really pretty, but then we realized, oh, it's by a highway, not very private. But either way, we still asked around restaurants in the nearby area, and the one that could accommodate their size was going to charge us 10 grand for 4 hours, which I understand because we're hiring out the venue, but it quickly made that option seem a lot less appealing. Like genuinely, when I first read it that the average cost of weddings was somewhere around 30 grand, I scoffed. I was like, oh lord, how lush do these things really need to be? But I get it now. Like if you want to do the traditional sort of like nice venue, nice food, couple guests, like 100 guests or so, yeah, your budget is going to get up there quick. I mean, it's easy to reach that. So I've been looking at alternative options. I've heard like golf clubs, boat clubs, community halls, stuff like that are good options still. The costs do add up in that way, but just differently, and maybe they account to less overall. But it does mean more organization on your part a lot of the time. In my mind right now, I'd be happy to go with like a wedding at a nice picturesque golf club, get a food truck. I think an ice cream truck would be sick. My partner brought that up and I was like, oh yeah, Mr. Whippy. But then of course you have to organize everything. You organize the decorations, the tables, the chairs. I think that might be the direction I'm leaning towards though. I'm not sure if my partner's going to sway that way, but we'll see. Anyway, I found this article. It was linked a couple times under Reddit threads because apparently this is a very common issue that people face when they're planning weddings, is this whole like dilemma of, oh my god, it's so expensive and I don't want this whole production. And this article is titled, Your Wedding is Not a Show. So I'm going to read some of it because I think it just articulates things better than I ever could. And if you're in my boat, you probably need to hear something like this. So this is what it says. It reads, here's the thing. The whole wedding industry is built around this idea that the wedding is a show and you are the stars. Which of course that's enough to make an introverted girl freak out. But more to the point, we're so stuck in this idea of the wedding as a show that we put a huge amount of thought, energy and stress into the idea of entertaining our guests. But here's the thing, your wedding is not a show. Weddings are about two things and we only ever talk about one. Weddings are about everyone gathering to see two people make vows of lifetime commitment and to celebrate that. But weddings are also about something else. They're about old friends and family getting together, sharing stories, catching up, hugging, laughing, talking, and making new friends and creating new memories. The two of you are the reason why everyone is gathered together, but blessedly, when a wedding goes right, it's about so much more than the two of you. The secret is that a happy wedding consists of the bride and groom being the reason, not the center of attention. In the end, if your guests decide what they really want to do is laugh and drink and tell tales, you've done your job. One day, in 20 years, the story they'll be spinning will be the story of your wedding, and there will be laughter and faraway looks and maybe even a few happy tears of memory. So don't worry about being the center of attention, because you're not really. You're just the sender. And that will be enough. And like I said, I wanted to read that because I feel like if you're in a similar boat, I mean, I feel like that's exactly what I know in my head that I want my wedding to be like, but I just couldn't put it into words. And I also, it's kind of like a nice reassurance to have. I guess there are just all these expectations that have been formed around weddings, when the only expectation of a wedding should really be that the bride and groom have a fun time celebrating with the people who choose to show up and support them. And I get that it's not always easy to throw expectations to the wind. I feel like I've been really lucky with that in the sense that like nobody's really buttoned their heads into the wedding plan. Nobody's like, it's got to be this way, we've got to have these people. But I think it's definitely something that should be considered for weddings. I mean, listen, the way I'm really thinking about it, do you want to have fun at the wedding, or the event even, that you're paying tens of thousands of dollars to host, or not? If you want to have fun, then have fun. Don't waste your money or your time on things that you don't think are necessary, things that you think are boring. I'm not saying it's always that simple, but I'm saying it should be. Like, try to keep it in mind, because you just don't have to throw money at stuff that you don't care about. And I found myself so tempted to, just because it's expected. And I'm stingy, okay? So I don't consider throwing money at many things. This is saying something. There are also a few other things I'm struggling with when it comes to planning a wedding, or especially like preparing myself to have a wedding day, and then more so interpersonal issues. I just feel like planning an event that's meant to bring friends and family together can actually end up dredging up some less than ideal feelings for some people. And I just want to quickly touch on that because I think it's important to share things like this. I've always found it really helpful when I come across people talking about things that maybe I'm similarly dealing with, and I'm like, oh, I'm not completely alone in this. A big one for me that I know is really common for like bride-to-bes is that my dad is dead. It also doesn't help that he was not a good person, so like I don't want him to be even a thought in my mind during the wedding day, but I know at least when I'm walking down the aisle, he'll probably come through, at least for a split second, because it's just like it's tradition. So naturally, as any sane person would, yesterday I sat down for a good hour and just cried, watching fathers of the bride like spend the night before the wedding with their daughters, have a first look at their daughters and their beautiful wedding dresses, you know, walk them down the aisle and hug the groom. I was just looking for ideas of like how you're meant to walk down the aisle and stuff like that. I didn't expect to cry, but I did. And while I did find myself feeling grateful for the family that I do still have, and you know, the people that are good in the world and stuff like that, I did still find myself feeling a little bit sorry that things couldn't be different with my father. And I won't lie, I do feel a tinge of envy towards people who maybe don't have to think about, you know, who's walking them down the aisle, or how their parents are going to act on the big day, or how they're going to avoid drama and emotional strain, you know, whether their families are even going to come to the wedding. It's very rare that anyone doesn't have to deal with any of those things or any issues at all interpersonally when it comes to a wedding. But if you're feeling a similar way, just know you're not the only one dealing with it. There's a lot of us. In a similar vein, I'm also struggling with the fact that I can't handle people drinking alcohol very well. It's just something I've never been able to shake from my childhood. As soon as someone has like a drink in their hand or alcohol in their breath, I'm like, oh, they're dangerous or they're in danger. I know one of them is true. I just don't know which yet. And I don't want my wedding day to be tarnished by, you know, my fear and dysfunction around alcohol, but I also don't want to deprive people of the opportunity to drink even a little bit at the wedding reception, get a little bit loose. So for that, we've been trying to come up with options that would allow hopefully everyone to enjoy their time, at least to an extent, because like I said, this is your day. You know, we've discussed this, you need to make it work for you. So we've floated ideas of, you know, we can maybe do more of a lunchtime wedding and finish a bit earlier, and we are planning a wedding on Sunday, so that actually might be more convenient for people anyway. And we're not big partiers, like neither of us are big partiers, so I don't think either of us would feel like we necessarily missed out on anything. We've also thought about offering limited drinks so that maybe the night doesn't get too rowdy. I don't spend the whole time feeling like I'm in imminent danger, curled up in a corner, hyperventilating. And the thing is as well that we are actually, this is the only event essentially that we are either totally in control of exactly who's going to be there. So maybe it will be different, and maybe I will just trust everyone in the building for that one night. It's wishful thinking, but it could work out that way. You never know. And the thing is, listen, I have no doubt, and neither should you, that everything will work out in one way or another with enough thought, enough planning. It's just that like when you're first looking at it and it's just this big problem that you need to work out, it feels very daunting. But that's life. I guess like that's kind of the fun of it. If everything was easy, it would be so boring. I will say though, I am actually in awe of how couples who both of them have full-time jobs, how they ever manage to plan a wedding and actually like action it. It's like working a second full-time job, I swear. Or at least it is in the stage of planning that I'm at now, which is like nothing. Like we haven't done anything. There's just so much to consider. There's so much to compromise on. There's so many things to think about. All for what's essentially boiled down to just being a big production. That's what it keeps coming back to for me. I'm having to swap the idea away like flies coming in the open front door in summer. It's like, no, I don't need that. I feel like a wedding day should be more, I mean, it depends on the couple obviously, but I feel like for me especially, it should be more about friends and family and, you know, celebrating the couple or love in general. But I just keep coming across things that make it seem like it's just this big elaborate like stage play. I think that once my partner and I can sort of pinpoint exactly what we want from the day and how we're going to make it work for us, we'll finally find some joy in the slog of wedding planning. It's quite the job. And what's funnier is that like my partner more so than me, but we've both sort of worked in the event industry. It's just shocking how difficult it is when the event is like a once in a lifetime event and it's all about you and you have to fund it. But if you're in the process of planning a wedding, do let me know how that's going for you. I'm very interested. Or if you've like been there, done that, I'd love to hear about your big day. That's like my fixation at the moment. I'm like, tell me everything. Or even just let me know how you feel about weddings. Do you love them? Do you hate them? Do you plan on ever having one? I know I never intended on having one, but I am actually looking forward to some aspects of it now. And I hope this video wasn't like super boring. I know it's not really, like I try to focus on the pop culture stuff, but it's mostly just stuff that like piques my attention, because otherwise, oh girl, I just can't sit down and write about it. Like I get so bored. I try, but I get so bored. So this was fun because this is all I've been thinking about lately. Oh my god. My partner did such a good job with the ring though. Bless him. He got a blue ring. Well, he was looking for a blue ring because he knows blue is my favorite color, which is so sweet. I didn't want an expensive ring. I was always like, just propose with a ring pop, please. Like, doesn't bother me, but it's so pretty. And I'm really glad that I can, well, as soon as it gets fitted, I'm so scared it would fall off if I wear it now, so I've been keeping it in a safe. But once it gets fitted, this is gonna be my new look. You like? This is how I will stand, by the way, just so everyone can see it. Anyway, okay. Thanks for watching. Thanks for this very long catch up. Hope you enjoyed, even though you probably didn't. Just lie to me. But have a great day. I will see you next time. See you. Bye. Also, if you want me to let you know how the wedding planning's going or anything like that, I will. Just ask. Okay. Bye.